Hey everyone, welcome back to Code with Poonam. It's day 85 of our 100 days of coding challenge in JavaScript. Today's challenge is all about to count how many times each value appears in an object. So let's proceed with this challenge and we will move towards our VS Code. If we see in the VS Code, we have here our question along with the sample input and output, right? So let us read out the question. We have to write a JS function to count how many times each value appears in an object. And here we have been provided with the three test cases. So this is our first input output, this is our second input output, and this is our third input output, okay? So in all, for all of the three input, we have to find their respective output, okay? Now we will come down and we will just break down our question. So first we have to write here what our JavaScript function. So I will take this and I'm going to put it over here. After this, what is the next important part over here? That we have to count how many times the value appears in an object, right? So this is the next important part. So I will take this and I'm going to put it over here. Now we will come to our line number 13 and we will define our function name. Now, since we have to count here the value occurrences, right? So we will keep our function name as what? Count value occurrences, okay? That is what we are going to keep it, and this we will be using it when we are going to write our function, okay? Now we will come to this input and output and we will understand for each of them how we are reaching to the respective output, okay? Now let us consider this input first, okay? So this is our object, correct? So we have here what? A:1, B:2, C:1, D:3 and E:2. So first of all, we have to get the values, right? So what are the values? 1, 2, 1, 3 and 2, right? Now, if you see here in the output, each one of them, they have found out that how many times it has been repeated, we can say, or how many times it has been occurred. So if you see for a 1, it has been there 2 times, right? So that is why you get here what? 1:2. Where it is here A:1 and it is at C:1. That is why for 1, it has been occurred 2 times. That is what it is written here. Now, let us go to the next output. It is 2, right? 2:2. So you can see here there is B:2 and there is E:2. That is why 2 value is also occurred 2 times. And that is where we get here what? 2:2. Now, when you come to the next, it is what? 3:1, right? So now let us see how many times 3 value has been occurred. If you see, it is only 1 time. That is D:3, right? That is where you get here what? 3:1. So that is how we are reaching to this particular output from the given object, okay? Now let us come down to the next input output. If you see here, what are the values here? Apple, banana, apple and grape. So how many times apple has been occurred? 2 times, right? That is why you get here apple:2. Now what about banana? Only 1. That is why banana:1. What about grape? Here it is also been occurred only once, right? That is why grape:1. So for this input, we are reaching to this particular output, right? By checking how many times it has been occurred. Now, when you come here to the last one, what we have in the values? We have the Boolean values, right? So Boolean values are also counted here. So how many times true has been occurred? 3 times, right? It is here and then it is here and then it is here. So A:true, C:true and D:true, right? That is where we get here what? True:3. What about false? Only occurred 1 time. That is where it is B:false. That is where we get here what? False:1. So that is how we are getting this particular output, okay? So if you see here in the output for all of them, if you consider what is there in the left hand side, it is the value, right? And what is the right hand side? It is nothing but how many times it has been occurred. If you see for this output also, it is the same. Even for this also, it is the same. So the same thing we have to do it, and therefore we are going to write our approach, okay? So I will write here what? Approach. Now let us see what we are going to use it to get this particular output, okay? So first of all, what we are going to do, we are going to initialize a count object. So I will declare a count variable and I am going to initialize with an empty object. Why we are doing it? Because here we are going to store our count. That means we are going to store that how many times our value has been occurred. Okay. So that is what I am writing it here as well. Okay. After that, what we are going to do, we will be using our for of loop. Okay. So I'm going to write here what for of loop. Now inside our for of loop, we will be using our object dot values. Okay. Why object dot values? Now I hope you all know, right? Because we have seen in our previous videos that what does object dot values does? It is going to return nothing but the array of our values, right? So that is what it is going to give. So since it is going to return us the array of the values, so suppose if I consider this as our first input object, okay? So I am taking this and I am going to put it over here. Obj is equal to this, okay? So this is our first input object. So how we are going to write? We will be writing what? Object dot values, and in the parenthesis we will pass our obj. So what it is going to return? It is going to return me an array of the value. So what I will have 1 comma 2 comma 1 comma 3 comma 2. This will be the output, okay? And this object dot values we will be using inside our for of loop. So let us write our for of loop. So I will write here for, then I'm going to write here what? Const value of object dot values, and inside the parenthesis we will pass our obj, okay? Now inside this flower braces, what we are going to do here, we are going to loop through the values, okay? So for each value we are going to check if it already exists in the count object, then you please increment it by 1. Otherwise, you please initialize or set it to 1, okay? So that is what we are going to do it. So what we are going to do, we have to increment, okay, by 1, okay? Otherwise, we have to initialize it by 1. So I will just write here what? Initialize by 1, okay? So how we are going to write it? We will write here count of value is equal to, if count value is present, you please use that. Or if it is not present, you please use 0, okay? And after using that, you please increment by 1. That is what we have to do it, okay? Now guys, I am going to explain you how this for of loop is going to work, okay? So suppose we consider this particular object, okay? And we know that our count object is an empty, okay? So let us take this also and I'm going to put it over here. Now, in this for of loop, what we have written? Object dot values of obj. That means it is going to return me what? An array of all the values, right? So we are going to get this correct. Now, what this loop is going to do? It is going to work on each and every value, right? So it will start processing from our 0th index. That is with our 1, correct? 1 value. So now initially our count object is empty. So it is going to check whether it is present. It is not present, right? So this count value will not be used, right? And therefore it is going to initialize it with 0 and we will do +1 on it. So we will get here what? 1. So we will write here what? 1 colon 1, correct? Now your count object has updated with what? 1 colon 1, right? So I'll write here 1 colon 1, okay? After that, it is going to check for the second value 2. 2 is also not present inside this, right? So that is where it is going to use what? Our 0 and then +1. That is what we are doing, initializing by 1 if it is not present. So now your count object will become what? 2 colon 1, correct? After that, what it is going to check? It is going to again check for 1, okay? So now what does it encounter? Yes, I have 1 inside it, right? So it will come here and it is not going to now use your 0. It is going to use this count value and then +1. So I will write here 1 + 1. So what we will get 2, and therefore this will become what? 1 colon 2, and therefore it is going to update our count object as what? 1 colon 2 now. That is what it is going to do, okay? After that, we move to our next value, that is nothing but 3, right? Now, if you see inside this count object, 3 is not present. So what will happen? It will use this 0 value and it is going to do +1, and therefore we are going to initialize this also by 1, and our final object will be after this what? 3 colon 1, correct? After that, what will happen? It will again iterate. Now it will see there is a last value that is nothing but 2. So it is going to check again. And it checks, it finds out, right? So then it is not going to use 0. It is going to use count of value, right? So then we will get here what? 1 plus 1, right? That is where you will write here what? 1 plus 1. And you will get here what? 2, correct? That is where our count object gets updated as what? 2:2, right? And therefore, we are going to get this particular output, okay? Now, let us see, it is the same 1:2, 2:2, and 3:3. So, this is what we are getting as our final resultant, okay? And after our loop ends, what we are going to do? We are just going to print our object. Which object? Count object. Okay, so we will write here our count object. And this is going to hold nothing but our all the value frequencies. Okay. Now this was our complete approach, and the same thing we are going to implement now inside our function. Okay. And we will be checking for all the test case which has been asked to us. Okay. So let us come down and we will write our function, and our function name will be what? Count value occurrences, right? Let us quickly invoke it. So I will write here what? Count value occurrences, and let us pass our first input object, okay? So I will take this input object and we will pass it down, okay? Now let us come here and receive here. So I will write here what? Obj, okay? And we will just console it out. So console.log of obj. Now let us test in the terminal. So I will write here what? Node 85 challenge, and we will hit enter. If you see, we got our input object, right? Now let us come down and we will initialize our empty object, okay? So I am going to write here what? Const count is equal to flower braces, okay? After that, we are going to write our for of loop. So let us write our for of loop now. So for and then const value of object.values we will write, and we are going to write here what? Our obj, correct? Then inside this flower braces, I will just show you now the values, okay? So console.log value. Let us come here and let us run it one more time. Node 85 challenge and hit enter. Now, if you see in the output, what we are getting our each value, but it is printed one after the another. If you see in the output, what we are getting our each value, but it has been printed one after the another, right? Why? Because we are printing this inside our loop. That's the reason. If you want to see that whether it is coming in an array or not, let us just come here and we will just console it out. So I will write here what? Console.log of object.values, okay? And inside that, we are going to pass our obj. So let us pass it. And now let us just test it one more time. So node 85 challenge and hit enter. So what we get? See, in an array, we are getting all the values of our object, right? So that is what we are going to get it. So now we will come here and we will write a logic to check if it already exists in the count object. You please increment the count. Otherwise, you please set it to 1, okay? That is what we are going to do it. So let us write here what? Count of value is equal to count value. If it is there, you please use this. Otherwise, you use our 0, okay? And then you please increment by 1, or it is going to set it by 1, correct? That is what is our logic for this. And after our loop ends, we are just going to print our count, okay? So I will just print here what? Count object. Now let us come here and we will just clear the terminal and we will run it. So I will write here what? Node 85 challenge and hit enter. If you see, we got our output. Let us see it is the same output or not. If you see 1:2, 2:2, and 3:1. So we are getting our output, right? Now let us do it for the next input object. So I will take this and we will come down and we are going to invoke it. So I will write here what? Count value occurrences, and in that we are going to pass our object, okay? Now let us run one more time. So node 85 challenge and hit enter. If you see, you are getting what? Apple: 2, banana: 1, and grape: 1. Let us see about, see, apple: 2, banana: 1, grape: 1. So it is the same. Now let us test for the third one also. So we will take this and we are going to come down and invoke it. So count value occurrences, and in this we are going to pass our input object. Let us pass it. Let us clear the terminal, okay, and rerun it. So node 85 challenge and hit enter. If you see, we are getting here what? True colon 3 and false colon 1. Let us test above. You see it is the same. It is 3 and 1, and here also we have 3 and 1. So if you see, for all the test cases, we have passed it and we are getting our exact output. Now let us come above. Now let us come down and we will just comment out our console.log statements. Okay, line number 38, line number 40, then line number 42 also, and we will just save it and we will come here, clear the terminal and rerun it, node 85 challenge and hit enter. If you see, we are getting here only the outputs, and this is exactly the same what was needed from us, right? So we have achieved the exact output, guys, okay? Now let us have a quick recap of this particular question. So what it was been asked, we have to write a JS function to count how many times the each value appears in a object, right? And we have been provided with the 3 input and output test cases, right? Then we came down and we wrote the important part of our question, that first we have to write a JS function and then we have to count how many times each value appears, right? And on the basis of that, we defined our function name as what? Count value occurrences, right? And we understood how we are reaching to the specific output for each of our input, right? And on the basis of that, we wrote our approach, right? So what we wrote inside our approach, first we initialized a count object, right? So we created an empty object to store the count of each value, right? After that, we understood that we have to use here what? For of loop, right? And inside that, we have to use this method that is nothing but object.values method. What it is going to do? It is going to get our all the values from the object, right? In an array form. That is what we have done and we have understood as well, right? Then we wrote our for of loop, and inside our for of loop, what we did? We looped here through the values. So for each value, it is going to check that if the value already exists in the count object, then you please increment it by 1. Otherwise, you set it to 1. That is what we have done. And after that, we understood how the iteration is going to perform, right? So after that, we print our count object, and in our count object, what it is going to hold? It is going to hold our final count object with the value frequencies, right? Then at line number 37, we wrote our function count value occurrences, and we were receiving our input object as a obj as a params, right? Then at line number 38, we just consoled and checked our obj, right? Here we just initialized our empty object, const count is equal to flower braces, right? Then we just tested here whether it is actually returning me an array or not. And we saw that it was returning me an array of all the values of a particular object, right? Then we wrote our for of loop, right? And finally, we printed our final count, right? Which is giving me all the value frequencies, right? Then from line number 47 to 49, we invoked our function 3 times. And in that, we passed our 3 different input objects, right? And we got our output as well. So let us clear the terminal and let us see one more time. So node 85 challenge and hit enter, you will get your exact output, right? So this is what the question was demanding from us, and we have done the same thing, right? Now I will tell you guys why this challenge is useful, because it enhances the knowledge of object manipulation and value counting. It also strengthens the understanding of loops and conditionals in JavaScript, and it is useful for data analysis, poll results, and survey data management. Okay, so that's all for today, guys. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more exciting content. Keep practicing and keep leveling up your JavaScript skills. I will see you tomorrow with another exciting challenge. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.